fine.
You guys, I'm going to turn this over to Eunice and the county, and I have no idea what they're going to do, so it's all theirs.
Okay, well, hello everyone. As you all know, my name is Eunice Davidson. I'm from Devil's Lake, North Dakota. I am a full-blood Dakota Sioux Indian, enrolled with the Spirit Lake tribe. And our language is Mini-Wakan, that means Spirit Lake. So anyway, we usually say that. I thought it was so important to come and meet everyone. First of all, I had requested to speak for the Board of Trustees and for Illinois for the Fighting Illini. And they went ahead and told me I could go ahead and come and speak, so I did. And I gave a 5-minute speech to them. I didn't hold back anything with the chancellor, that's the head of the school in Champaign. Yeah. So anyway, he is trying really hard to get rid of anything Native American in their college. Even anyone that has a cup or anything with Native American, they're trying to get rid of it. And I take offense to that. I think that anybody should be able to have anything that they want to use, for their own, their cup or picture or whatever. I talked to many of our tribal members, and I told them what I was going to be doing. I was going to come and speak to the Board of Trustees, and they're all happy that I was doing it. I told them, I said, I know I shouldn't do this. I don't like to play the race card, but I did call the chancellor a racist because of what he's doing in college. And I basically wanted to ask him, how does that feel? Because I've been called racist for standing up for these names. I've been called, everything you can imagine from all these people, from AIM, the American Indian Movement, Not Your Mascot people. They say some terrible things about any of us, Tony, myself, any of us that do stand up for these names and images. So anyway, what I said was, I talked to the people, they said, you have to, Eunice, I know you don't want to do this. And I said, I don't want to. I said, we have a family business. My daughter just hurt her back. I should be home. I'm going to be helping her. We have many issues on our reservation. We have poverty. We have bullying. We have unemployment. That is so awful. We have the casino, our corrupt leadership. We have leadership that's very corrupt on our reservation. We have many issues, housing. We have many issues that we should be dealing with. And I think that's where I should be at. But this is so important to me. Like the gentleman that was just talking, he said, you guys have issues here that you need to address that are way more important to your school, your kids' safety, especially what happened today. So, we all know that. But why are we here? Because we have a passion for a tradition that's been with all of us for probably 100 years. Some of us less, some of us more. And it's been a tradition that I've loved. When I first got married and I used to hang my clothes on the line, I always liked to have the radio on and hang up my clothes and I'd hear something about the University of North Dakota, home of the Fighting Sioux. It just made me feel so good. I just thought, wow, I just think all these white people want to use our names. And I just thought that was so awesome. And then when both of our kids played hockey. Well, our son played hockey and our grandson did. So we started going to the Ralph Ingleson Arena, and it's in Grand Forks. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of the Ralph Ingleson Arena.
Yeah.
Anyway, he donated a $1.3 million building. I can't even explain how beautiful it is in there. And when you walk in the front door, he's got that Sioux logo right on the floor in granite, and it's just gorgeous. And I love it. Then we go through in the building where the players, exercise. It's everything you can imagine. And they have like 2,400 logos, or Sioux logo throughout the building. But when I go to a game, when I go in there and I go to a game, when they have the Sioux name, they have the big Tron in the middle of the ice, and I would sit there and they would talk about why they're called the Fighting Sioux. And they said, we want you to know why we took the name Fighting Sioux, because Fighting Sioux was a warrior. They had strength. They were courageous. They had nothing but honor. That made me feel so good and so proud to sit in that arena and know that they're talking about my people, my ancestors. And my ancestors were that. They were not wimps. They never gave up. That's why I'm here. That's why Tony's here today. So, you know, coming down this way, I felt it was really important to go ahead and try and talk with everyone. I'd like to hear your questions, because I'm sure you have a lot of questions for me. I mean, I'll try and answer anything I can. Tony will take questions. My husband's is my researcher. I'm working on my master's in college. I waited till I was older. I had to work my whole life with my husband to make ends meet, pay finances and stuff. So I didn't go to school till I was like probably in my later 50s. And I went back and I just graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree from Black Hills State University in December. And I'm working on my master's right now. So, you know, it's, I just think I'm happy to be here. And I hope you guys want to ask anything, just go ahead and ask me. I'll try and answer it for you.
Thanks for being here. Did Bill Cunningham go easy on you today?
Oh my God, I just loved him. He came out and asked us, he said, are you guys Native Americans or Indians?
We're not real Indians.
I said, well, we're Indians. And so he started saying, I've got 2 white Indians.
He did that for at least 2 hours before the show even started. We got real Indians in the studio.
Well, that's what everybody on the reservation, we call ourselves Indians. We've always been called that. Native Americans, a lot of them don't like to be called Native Americans. If you're Native American, you're just a native of this country. It could be anybody.
Every one of you is a Native American. You were born here.
I got a question for you. So does it make you upset, just like we've been to a lot of these meetings, and to see them not have facts and just go up there and they're really not presenting anything? I mean, it's frustrating for me, and I think everybody in this room, when they really don't have the facts. And for you know, there's a lot of things I didn't know until I interviewed you guys, and is it pretty frustrating for you guys?
Yeah, it is. It's really disappointing to see natives and non-natives alike coming out and calling. Well, first of all, I hate to hear like Donna Van Boyle come into your area and call you guys racist. She doesn't know any of you. I mean, she calls me a racist. To me, that shows real arrogance and stupidity of somebody who doesn't even, they're going to bring up an argument. You usually have facts to argue with. She doesn't have anything. She doesn't. In fact, I went and I was creeping on her Twitter account. And I took some pictures out there and I showed them around our reservation and showed people. And she's got one of our Indian man with both his middle fingers sticking up, and she's got the Redskins.
Got her head around her Twitter page.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I showed that to people and I said, who the hell is this? So I told them who it was. They said, well, is she an Indian? And I said, well, she claims to be. And they said, well, she's not from our reservation, thank God. I said, how disrespectful. The elders just totally are shocked that people that don't come from reservations would act like that.
She's very distant.
Yeah. It's hateful.
Elizabeth Warren? Oh, go ahead.
So the changers keep saying that the R word is equivalent to the N word. When somebody calls you, does somebody actually ever come up to you and say you're a Redskin in a derogatory manner?
No, there's no comparison, nothing. Redskin are my grandfathers and my ancestors, they used Redskin, they used red men. And all they did was they used it to compare our skin color when there were negotiations with the treaty or military or with their Indian agents. They didn't, the language barrier was a lot, so they would call them the red men or the redskin. You're a white man, you're a white skin, is what they would say. I mean, or even if you were black, they'd say black, because there's a lot of mulattoes that were, mixed in with the Indian race. So, it was just a word. I mean, it wasn't anything derogatory.
I'd like to say something here on that. Yeah, there's so many that said the Great Spirit made my skin red and stuff, and they called their people Redskins. And this happened before this country was in existence. But the term Redskins, where they're trying to tie it to scalping. In 1862, they had the Minnesota Uprising. And there was between 500 and 1,000 whites that were killed during that 6-week period. But after that, the governor of Minnesota put a bounty on Sioux Indians $200 bounty on Sioux Indians. It was not on the scalp. It was on the Sioux Indians, but in the newspaper article, they put Redskins in there. Because that's the word that was being used all the time, is Redskins in it. But that's how they're tying, that is what they're using, that phrase from the Minnesota Pioneer in 1863, where they said the $200 bounty on Dakota or the Redskins. But it was on the body. Little Crow, who was reluctantly held as the instigator of it because he was one of the chiefs and they went to him and he tried to talk him out of going to war. But anyway, in 1863, he was trying to work his way back because he was friends with Governor Ramsey, he thought. But he wanted to see if they can't work something out to end this thing. Anyway, he was shot in the field while he was picking berries, him and his son. And when they found out who it was, they raised the bounty because they brought the body in. You can dye anyone's scalp in here black, or there's hair black, and you can cut it off. How in the heck can you give a bounty on that? You don't know. With your blonde hair, you dye it black, and that could. So it's never been about scalps.
Yeah.
It's been, and rightly or wrongly, Ramsey put the bounty on. But Ramsey was a piece of garbage. 1851, the Treaty of Mendota and Traverse de Sioux. The Sioux sold all their land, basically from I-94, Minneapolis, all the way south. And in that treaty, the chiefs already had enough dealings with these white traders and all that, and they said, we will be paid in gold into our hands, and we'll decide what we owe the trading post owners. And that's in the treaty. Ramsey had another paper drawn up, and they call it the Trader Papers. And what that amounted to was giving him power of attorney for all the Indians. The first installment, the government did what they promised. They appropriated $590,052 in gold, first installment for that land payment, and they turned it over to Ramsey to take back to Minnesota to pay the tribes. Ramsey took it back. Well, first he went to New York and exchanged most of it for paper money. Then he went back to, stopped off, he had been appointed territorial governor of Minnesota in 1849. But he stopped off, he was a representative from Pennsylvania. He stopped off in Pennsylvania, got a friend of his who was an accountant, took him back there with him to distribute that money to the trading post owners. Paid him $70,000 out of that money to distribute it to the trading post owners. And for 3 months, the head chief of the Midwauketon would not sign it. He says, we need you to put your mark to this paper that you've been paid. He said, well, we ain't been paid yet. And for 3 months in, I think it was September, October, and November, he's living in a teepee in Minnesota, in Mankato. He's away from his village and everything, waiting for that money to be paid over to him. And the old saying, wet, cold, and hungry, well, he was wet, cold, and hungry. Been there for 3 months and nothing's happened. His son-in-law, a mixed blood son-in-law, goes to him 1 o'clock in the morning. Him and Ramsey's agent take him into this blockhouse and tell him, set a bag of gold in front of him. Each head chief was supposed to get $3,000 of gold themselves. They set that bag of gold in front of him. Here, you put your mark to this and you can go home. You can take this gold with you. Wabasha, he knows they're not going to get paid. So he finally puts his mark to it. None of the other chiefs would put their mark to that paper until that money had been, until he had put it, because he was head chief. He puts his mark to it. His son-in-law, mixed blood, picks up that bag of gold. He says, winter's coming on, you're gonna need this this winter. He never sees it. This is the slime that slithers through these halls of these schools yet today. They tell you one thing, but they'll do something else. And that, I don't like to say that about Guy Jones, but Guy Jones is a liar. The Standing Rock Sioux tribe is the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. They never changed their name. He said that they all hated the name Sioux when they got rid of it. I heard him at that one meeting there. They are still the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. They had a vote in 2008 where the tribal leaders were trying to change it to Standing Rock Sioux, or Standing Rock Oyate, meaning people. They were going to change it, and the tribal members got mad, and they said, no, we're going to have a vote on this. And it was voted down 2-1. So 2/3 of the tribal members voted down changing the name from Sioux because they're proud to be Sioux. So I'm rambling on, taking up too much time.
That's 2/3, that goes back to all the other polls and surveys that we are doing today,
Exactly.
which is showing, you know,
Well, anyway,
91% or 60 and 40.
And that's what I wanted to ask you. I had a long talk with the changer today. And they said they don't believe those polls. That it's, you know, over 80% want to keep the name and all that. How do you combat that mindset? They keep saying these are small polls, they're, you know, push polls are rigged.
that our tribe, when this started with the Fighting Sioux back in 2007, John Chaskey, our tribal leader, he formed a committee of about 20 of us, and we went ahead and we did a survey just to make sure we had the backing of our tribe. And we have like 1,200 voting members, so we did a survey of 1,200. Out of 1,200, 50 people didn't want to keep the Sioux name. So we knew we had the backing, and then we talked to one of the council ladies. We said, should we do a petition? And she said, to get a vote. And she said, yes, because if you don't do a petition, the chairwoman at that time, she said she isn't for the name and local. She won't put it on the agenda to have a vote. So we went out and we did a petition in 20 below weather in the winter. Me, my aunt, who was elderly, and we all took districts, and we went out and we got those names. We had to get 300 and some names. And we got those names within 3 days. And we still had, and we're going to turn in a petition. We had people chase us down. So of course, we turned it into the secretary. There was a couple days later, we had that in, and Tuan Tran, the Grand Forks Herald reporter, called me, and he said, Eunice, he said, they're gonna take you to court, and they're telling you that 83 of those names are not good. And I said, what? He said, no way. I said, so I called some of our committee members. I called John. He said, well, I said, let's go to court. So we did, on the tribe, in our tribal court. And when we got there, our election committee was there, and they said there was only 5 names on there. They were enrolled members, but they didn't live on the reservation, and they couldn't sign it. So we had the names. I mean, everything was fine. So then we had a judge from another reservation. She was the one that heard the case. And when she heard the election committee talk about how the names were okay, then she said, I'll fax you my decision. And she did, and she said it was okay to go. So we instrumented the vote on the reservation. So anyway, when they put it back, they put it out, and we had the opposition, those people that were Indians that were against it. They brought in professors from the University of North Dakota, and they did presentations in every district. We have 4 districts. And these white professors got up and they talked about how discriminating the Sioux name is, how it causes so much pain to the students that go to the university, how awful, what they have to put up with. And I mean, they just said everything that was not even true. So anyway, some of my relatives, I graduated from the University of North Dakota, when we had our meetings, she talked about the university. She said, when I went to the university, she said, I stood up for the Sioux name, so the Native American Center wouldn't have anything to do with me. She said she had a little grandson with her, and she said they wouldn't even babysit. They wouldn't let her go to the daycare with the boy because she stood up for the Sioux name. And she's a full blood like I am. So anyway, she said, you know who helped me? She said the white students babysat, watched my grandson while I took classes. Well, isn't that? And that's just wild. So anyway, well then when we went ahead and our vote, the day we voted, I'm really close with Joey Hodgson, he's the general manager of the Ralph Ingolstadt Arena. Everybody was just like tense that day when they started calling it up. And then one of the gals, Lana, called me from St. Michael's District, and she said, Eunice, she said, guess what? And I said, we lost. No, she said, it's overwhelming in one of our bigger districts that they voted for. I said, oh my God. So they start coming in, and pretty soon we had 70% of our enrolled members, tribal enrolled members that voted to save it. In fact, they want to save all these names. So what they tell you is a lie. These are actual Indians that we have the vote on our reservation. Our tribe is the only one that's ever, well, we had to vote, but we had a vote on our reservation. Standing Rock was supposed to vote. They had a tribal chairman who would not let them do it. And we can't prove this, but when this whole lawsuit started between the NCAA and the State Board of Higher Ed, the Ingolstadt Foundation put up $1 million, 1.2 million I think is what they had, to the attorneys. And after everything got...
To sue the NCAA.
Yeah, but after everything got together, after everything was done, and we brought our lawsuit against, we have 2 lawsuits going against the district court and, we have the federal court and against the Supreme Court we were going. But anyway, we asked where that money went to because we knew Wayne Stenton had said, I am the board's attorney, I will take over for them. So they had spent $500,000, I think they said, to some law outfit in Colorado. So we asked, where did the rest of the money go? And nobody really knows, but we can tell you this. Ron is Horse's Thunder, who is the tribal chairman at Standing Rock, he had a home bill, $250,000 home. And we said, who builds that kind of a home on a reservation that's poor? Where do you get that money from? So he was the one that was holding up their vote. He wouldn't even put a moratorium on the Sioux name. They couldn't even talk about that in meetings. So that's why we lost with the NCAA, because they would not let him vote. But people today say, how does a non-vote cancel out a vote? I mean, that's how they treat the Indians. You know, we had the vote, we had everything. We did everything the NCAA required. We went above and beyond all the other tribes that went ahead and gave the okay. We actually had a vote. So that vote stands at 70%. We still have that. We have the resolution. The only way we can get rid of that 70% is if we have another vote and they vote it down, but that's not going to happen for a long time.
Just to follow up, probably more likely they're talking about the national polls. I think the very first one will date back to 2004 with Annenberg, which is a polling company right down the middle. Their methodology is solid. 90% support among Native Americans for the Redskins name. And then you've had subsequent ones from Sports Illustrated and ESPN. The Sports Illustrated was about Native names and imagery in general. I think that came out about 83%, no problem. And then the ESPN was, I think, about 71% favoriting with the Redskins. And in the 2016 Washington Post poll, 91% for the Redskins. Now, the thing about it is, ESPN, Sports Illustrated, Washington Post, they're leftists.
Yeah.
They have bias. So if anything, they're rooting for it to skew that way, and it didn't. So they can't credibly denounce these polls. They don't like the results, so they try to. If it came out in their favor, they would be lauding them, right?
The 2002 Sports Illustrated found 81% of Native Americans, but the thing that proves it, they found 67% of those on reservations support the names and images. They voted 67, or a little over 67%. That verifies all of those studies because that is the only track to allow a vote.
And those are facts.
And then the anecdotal evidence, go to any reservation in the U.S. and you'll see Washington Redskins,
If I brought
Indians, you
t-shirts
name
home from
it.
here,
They love it.
they would wear them.
Oh yeah.
You know
When we had our North Dakota people coming in, they were wearing Fighting Sioux. I saw a lot of Washington Redskins, the whole thing.
On our reservation, it's nothing to see everybody. Anything with an Indian on it, they love it. They'll wear it. I even seen one guy with Fighting Illini t-shirt on one day. I didn't get a chance to ask him where he got it from. But you go on reservations, I mean, I could probably just pull up on Facebook and show you all these people that were these locals. They love it. Anything given to them from an Indian that regards an Indian, they back it up.
And I guess what really, I hope that the people of the community don't get the impression of how Native American people are and how they act based upon these agitators. Native Americans are not this way. They're good, patriotic people who love this country and would never dream of coming into your community and calling you racist. And these are just horrible, hateful, mean people that are not representative of the Native American community.
I compare that Jones to that guy I was talking about, the Wabashaw's son-in-law, a mixed blood. They hate, they'll use whatever they can to get what they want. But like I said, I can't stress enough about the 2002 Sports Illustrated, because that was the very first one. And they are opposed to the names. Even in the article, it says they are opposed to them. But the exact vote came out proving they were telling the truth.
Now you will find the disconnect is that the changer side, they'll cite tribe after tribe, tribal leadership that has signed on to resolution condemning these names and images and so forth. But they are the elites. They're in government. Guess what? What do you get with government? Corruption, money, politics, intimidation. It's no different at the tribal government level. And yeah, there's money involved and so forth. So that's why, well, how could it be that you have all these tribes and tribal leaders that say this one thing, and then you have all of these it's the rank and file Native Americans who are not corrupted by this political agenda. They give you a fair, unbiased opinion of how they feel about it. It's not even an issue. They'll probably laugh at you. It's so stupid.
When Tony got a hold of me, Tony phoned NAGA, Native American Guardians Association, and he emailed Andre, and Andre had me email back to him, and then we started talking. And when Tony said, let's bring a bus, can you get some dancers and some drum group to bring over to the Illini for the homecoming? And I said, yeah, I'm sure I can. So I put word out there that we needed about 4 or 5 dancers, we needed a drum group. And I had calls up until that day when we were still on the bus, people from our reservation standing up, they wanted to come. They were just thrilled. They wanted to come and and dance forever. They love it. They love our culture, and yet they love America. Our people are peaceful. The majority of them are very peaceful. They're not radical. They're funny. They like a lot of humor on the reservations.
See, I was born in Oklahoma, and almost every rodeo opened up with an Indian dance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was just, the formula for it. Every little local rodeo, you had the Indian dancers, and then you had this, and you had that.
Another important point, it goes right to the heart of your question. They testified, they managed to force the State Board of Higher Ed to allow them to speak. And it was the only time that the supporters were allowed to speak. But the chairman from Standing Rock came in when they had only been given 15 minutes to speak to the State Board of Higher Ed. Anyway, the chairman of Standing Rock came in, and they had still 5 minutes to go. They were interrupted, and one of the state board members said, I see the chairman from Standing Rock is here. We better have him say a few words. I had asked to speak there, and I was told, no, our agenda is so strict, we can't. They get 15 minutes between 5 for the 3 of them, and we can't afford any more time. We have to follow the strict agenda, so I couldn't speak. Standing Rock chairman comes in 2 hours after the meeting had started, but just when they're talking. And
I think he was called because they needed somebody to rebut I and John Chesky and Sam Dupree. We were talking to the board, and we were asking them why they were going to retire the name so fast, especially after Spirit Lake had just voted. And that was a question they wanted to ask us questions. Well, anyway, Ron the Horses Thunder comes walking in, and Dwayne Espegard, one of the state board members, who I really feel is racist. Anyway, he brought him up there, and he got up there, and he spewed all this ugliness about white people, how racist, look what you did to our people over the years, blah, 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 blah. He went on, it's the usual thing. I was so embarrassed, I got up, and I couldn't even stand by where he was, and I got up, and John Chesky was quarreling with him.
This is about the $250,000 house, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure I knew the right.
Yeah, Ron his Horses Thunder. But anyway, John and them he told him at that board meeting, he said, Sam Dupree, I know you've been on our reservation, you've been getting a petition, trying to force us to have a vote. He said, told this whole room of college presidents and everybody in there, he said, I'll tell you right now, he said, you could bring me a petition that's 100% signed, and I will crumple it up and I will throw it in the garbage. And you think that would have made news? Nothing about him saying that, because we had cameras in there all over. I mean, so anytime the financial issue was brought up, we had, the news media was there constantly. But that wasn't even brought up. So when I wrote my book, I put that in the book because I wanted his people to know what he said. And I'll tell you, he's hated. When he ran for his turn again, I think he got maybe 2% of the vote. So that just shows you how people are they're very oppressed. How can you say it? A lot of them know if they speak up and say anything about this, especially on the reservation, if you're on any of these programs that help you with your heating or whatever, EBT, food stamps or whatever, they know that the tribal council can pull that from you. And it has happened. They've done it to many people because they don't agree with it. So, yeah, I think, I don't know if Standing Rock will ever stand up to their oppression that they have. But, I mean, that's just showing you guys how this group of people that you guys are dealing with, this Jonathan Boyle, this Charlene Teeters, is that her name?
Well, she's a thing.
Yeah.
Are they making money off of this?
Oh, yeah, the NCAI gets a lot of funds for the education program from the government. They get just tons, and I'll put that on my Facebook page or on the Facebook page to show you the study they did. Nobody knows where any of that money goes.
Can I ask a question?
It's just north of Dayton, so it's not that far away. It's an hour and a half away.
You've worked with a lot of schools like we are, and that's what you do. And we have the study committee, and they're going to make a recommendation. But eventually it comes down to just 5 votes, 5 people. Is there anything you could suggest to us or we could try to impact the people that are actually going to make the decision? Have you seen other high schools do something that you really think makes a lot of sense to the school board?
Well, in Papa, Michigan, I and Andre Village would travel there, and I got to speak to the board for 20 minutes. They held everybody 20 minutes. They have the Native Americans in that area, I think the Potawatomi tribe, and they had some of their opposition come and speak, and the educators were there, and they talked about how discriminatory this is, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I got up and I talked about our history, and I talked about one of my grandfathers who actually stood with him in the British War. And I talked about our reservation supporting this, how Standing Rock supports it. And I said, we don't know about the other reservations because they've never been pushed to do it. I know Sisseton, South Dakota is part of our tribe, one of our sister tribes. And we had a petition signing at the Fargo Mall in Fargo, North Dakota. We had a group of people from Sisseton Indians who got together in a van, and it's quite a drive from Sisseton to Fargo. They come up to sign our petition. And we felt so bad because they couldn't sign, they were from North Dakota. But we let them sign a petition anyway, just so we have it. But when a lot of people don't understand that the Indians are most of them don't have gas money, and that's one of the programs pays for it or whatever. But anyway, yeah, as far as when I went to Papa, I talked about all these things, and I let them know that the Indians do support it, and we do have facts. We can show you. We can show everybody what they feel like. what was I gonna say, I lost my train of thought. But anyway, when we got up and I read my whole statement to them for about 20 minutes, two of the board members were very interested. And we were really happy because they wanted to meet with us privately. So they met us at our hotel and they asked us about facts. And he said, what you and Andre were stating is factual. And they said, well, if the Indians, like it, that's getting our press. So they voted by the one vote, they kept their Redskins name.
I would say this, at best, the whole Indian issue, as far as if they're going to decide it based upon, is it offensive, is it not offensive, at best, it cancels itself out. Because, they can say, well, it's, racist, it's offensive, that's their opinion, and then it's been countered, and they have all the information, they have the survey data, they've had statements from us and so forth. At best, it cancels itself out. So what are you left with? You're left with your students, your alumni, your community. You're left with, your economic situation, all the other things. That's an overwhelming in your favor. So what could be their possible motive at this point? They can't say, well, it is definitively, racist or so forth. And they could say, well, if just one person is offended. Well, what if one person is offended by its removal? What if one person is offended by you saying the Pledge of Allegiance? Do you stop doing it? What if, before the games, what if somebody's offended by the national anthem? One person. If that's the standard, then that standard has to be applied across the board. Then there wouldn't be anything left.
Something that you kind of need to know, and going back to Standing Rock, 2009, tribal chairman said, I don't care if they 100% sign a petition in support of the name and that, I'll roll it up, throw it in the garbage. But he also said something that hits to the heart of Indian country. In 1969, Standing Rock and Spirit Lake, Devil's Lake Sioux at the time, they went to the university and put on a powwow, naming ceremony, and they used the pipe. The pipe in the Indian language, or in the Indian culture, is their word forever. It is not just used willy-nilly, it is only used to seal something, and they gave the name forever. Ron is horse's son. He wouldn't dare say this on the in tribal land or Indian land, but he says as far as that ceremony, he admitted it had happened. As far as that ceremony goes, he says the man is dead. Poof, it's gone. He would be tarred and feathered and probably scalped if he were to say that on any reservation.
That's why he wasn't elected.
But what did the news media put out? The chairman talks about the election process on Standing Rock.
That's another thing, you guys, the media is probably not on your side. That was our issue also. The truth never got out. Some people today, after how many years, still don't even know the Spirit Lake tribe voted.
And they don't know that in 2010, 1,004 people on Standing Rock signed a petition to have a vote. That equaled out to 57% of those that had voted in the last election. It's been tabled. The tribal council will not even look at it. So, tribal leadership, they say this one thing, but they are oppressing their people. And if these guys want to go with the standing with these oppressors, that's what it really is. And they are racist because only the Native Americans are targeted here. No other one. And this country was all Native American at one time. What is more fitting than a Native American name and image? But these racist people are targeting Native Americans.
Whether it be Native or non-Native.
And what I gave in my speech to the Board of Trustees when I opened it up is, you might wonder why after decades of there being no controversy whatsoever, in fact, the only Native American opinion about this was favorable, with Blackie Wetzel, Native American, president of the NCAI, same group. He was the president of it. He came up with the idea to have a design of the Washington Redskins. All the history was favorable. What happened? what happened is a group of very bad people conjured this up because they want to disrupt. They want to use the Saul Alinsky model. They want to divide people, you know, along racial lines, you know, you name it. They want upheaval. You've heard it, it's true. They want decolonization, as crazy as that is. This all ties together. It's not just native names and images. It's the statues that are coming down. It's the, hey, you know, George Washington owned slaves, so we got to get rid. It's all interconnected. And it's this far, far leftist extremist agenda to tear apart our society. And
That's what they're doing. And they're dividing you guys in your area, just like they've been, you know.
it's shocking that you would have a board that would even consider this for 5 seconds.
But all the other problems that you have at your schools.
The gentleman that was just indicted up in Cleveland for the Wahoo thing,
I've heard
what was his name? I actually went onto the website, after I looked at the name, I went to the gentleman who was in charge of that website. It was the Native Americans of Ohio or something like that. And I went on it and I was reading some of the statements from their own, that said, oh wow, this guy was a part of our group and now he made us look bad. Should we be bringing that up to our actual, you know, the board? Hey, you have groups that are coming in here that are false. They try to get rid of the Wahoo Indian, but the man who was one of the biggest supporters getting rid of the name stole a bunch of money from the Indians that were, he was helping.
It was Homer Shadowheart.
So is that
I would mention it, yeah, definitely, it's made news.
I mean,
So I
he's pled guilty to federal
I would say
indictments.
something.
They're still trying to go out their pawpaw. We've got about 5 minutes.
And that's all the batteries, got the batteries going low.
Because we have pictures with people and that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, let me, can I?
Hold up.
Can you guys hold on 1 second? Can I want to tell you a story, okay? I want to tell you a story. You guys all heard about Standing Rock and the big protest, okay?
Yep.
Okay, I'm really good friends with many of my brothers and sisters in Standing Rock. And when this first started, the elders wanted to have a silent protest. They wanted to just show their spiritual, that to stop this, they call it the black snake or whatever, the pipe from going into the ground. They did that, they started. And then you had all these agitators come on. And you heard about the protest and the shooting and the fighting. We went to the camp, it was huge. And when my husband called Archie and told him we were coming down there with our attorney, Lil and Brotherton, he said, yeah, come down, I'll drive you guys through. So we went down there with Archie, Fool Bear, and some of our other friends. But when he took us through this camp, I was looking all over and he said, this is where AIM is, this is Black Lives Matter. And they even had the Palestinian flag there. These were all agitators. And when I went through that camp, I didn't see one Indian. You had all the environmentalists that were there. They were the ones that caused the problem.
And then they trashed it.
And they
When they
trashed it.
trashed it, and when they left a mess. I mean, the state is still going. But the bottom line is here, it was not what it was reported. It was in fact, so many things happened afterwards that they really made a mess for the tribe. The tribe has got bad relations with the state now. But really, the actual people there that are enrolled there, they didn't want to have that. But you didn't hear about that. Their voices were not heard.
$57 million worth of cleanup after they left.
That's what Digital Smoke Signals was saying.
And how much of those contracts went to
Standing Rock.
the natives locally?
That's
No.
north and south quarter belt.
Yeah, okay.